Things happen, and I'm so excited. We look up to Bill so much. He's so real in this business. He's so authentic. He knows what he's doing. He's been around. He's seen it all. And I'll tell you what, you guys are in for a treat tonight. So let's give an unbelievable revolution welcome to Bill Austin.
You guys having a good evening?
Yes.
Good. I'm so honored to train with you guys. I've been begging Tom to come down here. He finally let me in there. I was like, let me come train, let me come train, let me come train. But you guys, you're the up-and-coming bass shop in the state of Colorado, and we're just trying to keep up with you. Say it again. You know? Say it again. We are. We're out there. You guys were neck and neck with us, which is saying a lot. We've been in 15 years. We've been building a long time. So to be neck and neck and going toe-to-toe with you guys down here is exciting. These guys are not new in the business, but relatively speaking, they are new in the business, and they're running a 20 by 20 bass shop, going to be absolute superstars. And in Primerica, you want to be associated with that. You look at the people who are moving up, and that's who you want to be around. You know what I mean? I don't hang around with the dull and disillusioned. I like to hang around with the players, and they're definitely going to be one in this business. And they wanted me to talk about a couple of things this evening, and so how much time do I got? When do you guys usually end?
8:30.
8:30?
Or take all the time you need.
Cool. So,
We've got a clock right there, Bill.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, like I was saying, I was raised here, man. I came in the business when I was 31 years old, I believe, and this is the bass shop that I was trained in when I came through Dave Harms. I've seen it go from about this size to packed where you can't stand in it, you know what I mean? I was a rep sitting in the back row and moved up through the system with Dave, and so it's been forever in this office. I hope he never sells it. You know, I think, is he ever going to do a different lease? I don't know, but for about 20 years he's been in here, and I know some of the people in the room, and I've been doing this a long time, and you guys are in a great spot. Fair enough. So he wanted me to cover a couple of things. Like the first thing I wanted to cover with you guys is the convention, okay? He did a push for the convention, and I want to let you know, if you're serious about this business and you guys want to get big, you'll go to convention, all right? Now, I'm not talking tonight to the part-timers. I am, but I'm not, okay? So I want to put a disclaimer. I'm not trying to blow you out of the business. I've been known to do that. Like, you're like, God, that was a great talk, but Larry and Sam never showed back up. You know what I mean? I'm not doing that. We love part-timers, you know what I mean? This business was built off of people coming in and making an extra $1,000 a month. And I had a guy come in one time, he just wanted to get a big screen television. And when he got it, I never saw him again. I'm like, hey Bob, let's get it, you're killing it. You go upstairs, no, I'm good. What are you doing? Watching my TV, you know? All right, every goal's met, you know what I'm saying? Move on. So what you want out of this business is what you want out of this business. So in no way tonight am I telling you to quit or to get gone or not. But I am telling you, if you're serious about Primerica and you want it to be your life, you'll go to convention. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of things in convention that's very hard to explain here, okay? Convention's probably going to cost you $500 to $700 to do it cheap, you know? It's worth it. I would do it. I mean, you've got, what, we've almost got 5 months. You take $100 a month and you put it into a jar. And you give up the Starbucks and you give up the bar and you give up the out to eats and you just take that $100 and you put it in. And your family will say, what are you doing? You say, I'm saving for convention, like a little kid, right? And then you take $500 and you add $100 for the last month and you've got $600. You carpool down. If you guys need help, we're going to have vans and stuff that we got going down, you know. We're always looking for extra drivers and people to go. And if you guys get a van, it's a great way to do it. You can get it on the cheap. You know, but if you go down there, you go down and you learn things about Primerica. First off, there's about, probably more than that now, but there's about 2,500, I think, 2,600 ring wearers, and they're all at convention. So you'll be talking with a guy and they'll have a blue ring, which means they make $2 million a year. And they come from, they're a plumber. You know what I mean? And you're talking to this guy and you don't even know who you're talking to, and then right before he leaves, you look down and he's wearing a blue ring, and you're like, man, that dude making $2 million a year, and I didn't even know it, you know? You can go and you hear stories at convention, I tell people. I went to my first convention, I was 2 weeks in the business, okay? And Dave said, what I'm telling you, you don't go to convention, you won't be big. And I was very coachable. You remind me a lot of me when I came in that like you just tell me to do something, and I would do it. And he said, got to go to convention. I said, okay, what's convention? And I've only been 2 weeks. And he says, a big event down in Atlanta. I said, all right. So I went home, and I was making decent money, and I bought my plane ticket, and I rented a car down there, and I bought a hotel, and I did all this stuff without asking him. And then I called Dave up, and I said, I'm ready to go to convention, dude. I got a car, I got a hotel. He's like, that's not how we do it. How we do it? He says, we all go together, and we stay in the same room. I'm like, okay. So I called up, and it cost me, I think, $700 because I canceled everything. Like an hour later, I took a hit on everything that I set up, and then I set it up Dave's way. You see, and then I went to convention, and then I'm sitting in, and as you get to know me, I'm very ADD, you know, and I can't spell, I'm dyslexic, I can't read, you know, and so I was telling Tom, I'd like you to come down and teach my team like business, because they get what you're getting tonight all the time, but they don't necessarily have any knowledge of business, right? So I'm like, that would be really helpful. So anyway, I'm like, all right, we're going to go down. And I'm sitting in this meeting, non-technical, and there's probably 15,000 people in the room, right? And that's the small room down there. We fill the Georgia Dome. When we go in, there's 58,000 people in the Georgia Dome. So I'm in the small room with about 15,000 people. And I'm waiting, and I'm sitting there with my notepad, and I know I ain't going to take no notes because I don't know how to take notes. And I'm like sitting there, this is going to be so boring, you know. I've only been in 2 weeks. And they're like, we're going to bring out John Addison. And I'm like, oh, great. Write that down, honey, John Addison. Look back up, and I'm sitting there, and John Addison comes out. And if you've ever seen John Addison, he looks like me. He's like a roly-poly guy, you know what I mean? And he comes out, and he's short. He's got a southern accent. And he's like, hey, man. He's like, let me ask you, you know, who do your kids love out there? And this hand goes up, and this is a long time ago. I think this is in, I don't know, I've been in a long time. So this is about 2 weeks, like 15 years ago. And he's like, who you guys respect? And he's like, my kids love Michael Jordan. He's like, Michael Jordan, he's awesome, right? They're like, John Elway. And he's like, John Elway is awesome, you know. One guy, remember, like yesterday, he's like, Michael Jackson. He's like, I don't know about him. That's what he says. I don't know about him, but if your kids love him, that's good. You know John Addison? And he's like kind of doing like this, right? And I'm like, this guy's kind of funny. You know what I mean? This is not really, I'm going to set my notepad down. And then he's like, after all this, he says, hey, man, let me tell you who your kids don't want to be. He's like, hey, he's like, you. They don't want to be you. He's like, they don't want to watch people work their entire life and have nothing at the end of it. The one person they don't want to be like is you. He's like, the generation that created Generation X is you. He says, if I watch my dad work his whole life to end up broke and alone in a house, he's like, I'd smoke a joint too. He's like, why would I work? He's like, why not you? Why don't you be the person who your children want to be? Why don't you go out and do something great with your life? Why don't when they talk about their hero, they talk about you rather than talking about Michael Jordan, right? And so I start crying, right? I'm like sitting there, and my shoulders are this. My wife's only been in 2 weeks, and I told Jerry it was going to be a honeymoon because we never went on a honeymoon. And so she's sitting in like 15,000 people, and I'm crying, and this guy's like, and then Jerry's like, what is wrong with you? You know what I mean? And I was like, my kids don't want to be me, man. They don't want to be me. I don't know, barely know their names. I never show up at home. You know what I mean? I work all day and all night. I'm under heavy stress. I'm angry when I'm around them. And I left the convention that year, and then I was like, I'm in. So you hear people say that all the time. Go to convention because it'll change your life, and they don't give you an explanation why. But I'm telling you, like, go to convention, it'll change your life. You'll go in there and you'll hear something from somebody that makes sense to you. And it may not make sense to anybody else in the place, but you'll be sitting there and you'll be like, yeah, that's right. They don't want to be me, And then my wife, she thought it was going to be one of those things. And remember, only 2 weeks I'm in. But I left 2 weeks later, and it was done for me. Like, it took me 15 years. I'll tell you a little bit about my story, but it took me 15 years to really make good money in Primerica, and that's the part I don't want to scare you off. It took me forever, but I had to change a lot, But I knew when I left there, I didn't want to be who I was. You know what I'm saying? And I knew the only place I could be somebody different was Primerica. And so I just stayed here, and I don't know if you guys, I'm so old, but I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie called Heavy Metal, but it's a cartoon. And through the entire movie, they have like this green ball, and it represents greed, and they'll go from different stories through heavy metal, right? And it kills, the green ball kills everybody who gets a hold of it because they become so self-absorbed and greedy, they die at some point for some reason, right? And I say Primerica is the opposite of that, but it's the same concept. It's like you get a ball of your dreams, right? And as long as you're here, you have them. You may not get them right away, but you can see them. You know what I mean? You can see freedom. You can see like owning something better. You can see your kids knowing your name. And then when you quit, you just take that ball and you just set it on the shelf and walk away and go work for Costco. And you know, I'm not lying, the rest of your life is shot. I can almost play it for you like a script. People, oh, you're exaggerating. No, I'm not. Tell me what you do for a living. I can almost tell you where you'll end up in the end. It's how it works. You know, it's how it's set up. Corporate America is not set up for us to win, right? So the longer you stay there, the longer you're in nonsense. And when you finally break free, like that's what makes them so impressive, is they were making good money. I hear people say, I can't take a risk. Who you work for? Taco Bell. I'm like, risk it. Like, I don't mean to cuss, but you know what I mean? Taco Bell. Like, I would have quit yesterday without a job and smoked the pot. You know what I mean? You know? And people don't quit their jobs, you know, and these guys making $250,000, $300,000 a year in kind of their own businesses in the upper echelon of the military, and they leave it to chase their goals and dreams. That should tell you something if you're in a 9-to-5 that pays you $10 an hour, or God forbid $30,000 a year, and you think that that's life. That's not life at all. You know what I'm saying? They say in Primerica, life doesn't start till $250,000 a year, and I can see that. You know, so go to convention. I want you to go to convention. Like, you need to go. You know, I can tell you. We went. Adam Schechner, I believe is his name. He passed away. And his wife came to convention right after it, right? And everybody was asking her if she was going to come to convention and if she planned on it. She's in front of like 58,000 people, and she's like, what is her name, Schechner's wife? Patricia Schechner. And she's like, I'll never forget her story. I'm sitting in front of 58,000 people. And she says, you know, I was talking to Adam the other day, right? And I was there in his last breath. And we had just laid the last tile on our $4 million home. And he had built a $4 million home, and they had just put the last tile down. And she went to see him in the hospital where he was dying, and she said, honey, we finally got the last tile down. The house is done, and I'll put it on the market right away. And Adam Schechner said, please don't. He says, please go find another man and raise your kids in that house and be happy. Because everything that I ever did in my life rests in that home. And she's like, so I did. You know, I carried on. And I was like, wow, you know, only in Primerica. You know, only in Primerica does a guy spend his entire life building something and then passes away. And rather than be a jackass, he's in heaven, right? Rather than say, I want you to remember me or follow me or whatever, he says, go find another guy. And go be happy, you know what I mean? And let my kids play in the $4 million home. And that was my whole purpose, because I'm going to a better place and I'm leaving you a better place, you know what I mean? Well, that's another story in convention that I walk away and I'm just like, man, you know, it's for me. It's what I do, you know? So you go to convention and then you'll leave it. And you don't know who, because I listened to probably 50 other speakers that weekend. I can't remember one of them. I remember Patricia Schechner, and I remember Mark Marchesani. I know this isn't training, but I want to push it for you. If you guys aren't signing up for convention, you're lost, man. You got to go sign up. It costs $20 or something, $50 or something. Go sign up. Then start saving your $100. And then get in a car and go down there, because it's going to be awesome. You know what I mean? You got Mark Marchesani. You guys know Mark? And Mark is there. And I don't know who Mark is, and he was the most valuable player that year in front of like 58,000 people. And he spoke at convention, and he had the 58,000 people were just like answering his questions. He'd like, you know what I said? And the whole crowd would be like, what? I'd be like, wow, this dude is running this show. You know what I mean? Like, man. So anyway, go to convention. I can go on with things that I've seen at convention. It's a place where we party. You know what I mean? We go down with our team, and our team gets together. We usually have about 30 to 50 people at convention, and those 30 to 50 people, that's not including my hierarchy, that's just out of my base. You know what I mean? And we just go down and have a hell of a good time and goof off. So if I can give you anything tonight, follow these guys to convention. We'll all meet. We'll eat buffalo wings on top of the hill at Hooters, because it's the only place you can go. And we'll go have some fun. You know what I'm saying? So another thing is Mark's push. Okay, we all did good last month. We did 33 recruits and I think 15,000 in premium, 15,000 somewhere in there. I don't know exactly where we ended up. You guys did good too, but last month was just an acceleration month. Do you understand what I'm saying? Last month was just, he didn't count last month. We got to hire 300 people this month between our hierarchies, or Dwayne ain't coming to town, and that's not acceptable. So I won't spend a lot of time on that, but don't think last month was the month. This is the month. Dwayne's not coming unless we hire 300 people. So you did 20 last month, 18 last month. You guys should do 30, 35 this month if you're really pushing. We did 33 last month. I'm planning on doing 60 this month. I will really want to hire 10 personally. That's my major goal, is to put 10 directs personal to me, so that we double-digit recruit off of me alone, and then my team throws in another 50. You see? And so we want to do that. All right? So those things being said, if you have any other questions about convention, I'll talk to you. If you tell me you're not going, I'm going to yell at you. All right, so basically my story coming into Primerica is just going back in time to give you a little history and why I came in. Is when I came in, or in high school and in grade school, I'm highly dyslexic. So is my son now, and people will say, you know, you use that, but really, I wrote a mission statement. I have a mission statement for my organization, and I keep it on my wall that I wrote. And then a guy in the place asked me what we were about, and I went to read my mission statement. I couldn't read it, and I wrote it. You know what I mean? So that's my life. You know what I mean? When I look at words, they're not words to me anymore. And he's like looking at me like an idiot because you can't read your own damn mission statement, you know? And that's just how my life has been, my whole life. And so, like going through grade school, through high school, through college, not a lot of people told me I was going to make it, right? There wasn't a lot of people saying, you're awesome. They were mainly saying, you're lost. You know what I mean? I got really good in football, but I used to spend my time in special education classes, you know what I mean? So, and back in my day in the 80s, that meant like a trailer. So everybody else goes to the school, and you go to the trailer. And I was going to school with highly mentally handicapped children, like not like dyslexic kids, like kids can't talk. You know what I mean? They're so handicapped. And I got to know them because, like, they're the people I hung out with, you know what I mean? So I knew Robert was trapped inside his own body, and he understood every word you said, but he had crazy movements and stuff, and he would slobber on himself and stuff, but he understood. You could tell him, you know. I did some things. Robert was a friend of mine, you know, and I knew him. So, like, they put him, to give you an example about Robert, like, this is way off track, but he said, let it loose. Robert, one time, man, Robert is we're in high school, and they have this integration class where they're trying to take the heavily handicapped people and integrate them with the school. You know what I mean? And nobody knows Robert. I know Robert because I hang out with Robert all day in the trailer. You know what I'm saying? And they get it, and they making fun of Robert. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting there, and I was like, Robert, and he can't, I mean, seriously, he can't talk like this, you know what I mean? And he's looking at me, I'm like, hey, Robert, do you want to be here, dude? And he's like, no, you know what I mean? And I'm like, all right. And I'm like, I go out, and I'm the captain, right? I was good at football, and I was the captain. That Bill, you can pick a team, and Tim Skull was the head of the schools. You can pick a team, he was the president. So we're sitting there, and they're, who's your first pick? And I said, Robert. And they, right? Right? So we get the teams picked, and then I get Robert, and I'm like, okay, Robert, listen to me here. He's like, all right. I said, now when you go out there, I'm going to put you to jump for the ball first. He says, yeah. I said, but we're not jumping for the ball. You're going to punch Tim Skull in the forehead as hard as you can when you jump for the ball. And Robert's like, okay. And I'm like, there we go. And they're like, who do you want to jump ball? Robert. And Robert goes out there, and they throw the ball up, and Robert's like, bam! That kid's like, wham! And they're like, Robert, out of here! Robert's like, and I'm like, next, right? And that was my life, dude. That's the life I was living. You see what I'm saying? So there was not like, the reason I played football so hard is because I spent the majority of my time in that trailer, and I wanted to date the cheerleaders. So the way I figured I'd date the cheerleaders is I'd be the best football player on the field, and then I could go to the trailer, and I live these two lives. Then it takes me a long time to fill out applications. So if we switch applications to American Funds, I order 100 American Fund applications because they're free, and I fill those applications out and ruin them, and I just throw them in a pile until I fill one application correctly. And then once I fill one correctly, I start filling 3 to 4 out until I can fill it out 3 or 4 times perfectly so I don't screw it up in a house, and then I'm good. Then I take the whole pile of applications that I screwed up and I just throw them away in the trash, and then I'm off and running. Okay, so they had me fill out these applications for college, and I had a 1.4 GPA, so I go in and fill out the applications. Probably took me 4 months to fill out the applications. I didn't want to ask my parents. So a lot of this stuff's emotional for me, but I fill out the applications, and like I give them to my, isn't that funny? It's like 40 years ago, but I give them to my counselor. And then I left, and then I came back like 3 months later, and I said, hey man, I thought they'd at least say no, you know? He's like, what are you talking about? I said, the applications, man. I thought they would like say, no, you can't go. And he took out all my applications from the drawer and set them on the desk and said, I never sent them in, you're not college material. And I said, okay man. I said, so what am I? He says, you can go to the military if you want. And then that made me mad. So I said, all right. So I joined in Mesa State College. I went into a program that was like one of those programs where you can be a mechanic. Like one of those programs, only it was in business with Mesa State College. So I was in college in a dorm room before I graduated from high school. So I was 17 going to college, and then I came back for my graduation. But I passed with a 2.0. From there, but I was so frustrated by that time with school that I was really athletic, and I thought I'd just gonna go shoot people, you know what I mean? So I was gonna be a special forces guy. I was totally sold out on it, but I was pretty crazy. So my brother, he filled out all my college transcripts without telling me and signed my name and sent it to Western State with football tapes. And then Western State called me 2 weeks before practice started, and they say, you want to come play football? And I think I've been drinking, and I got like a big tummy, you know, and I'm like, I started to get angry. I'm like, hey man, who's this? Because I didn't fill out anything, you know. Oh, you can come down. I'm like, shut up. And like, Ken comes bouncing over the couch. I can remember like yesterday, he comes flying across like sideways over the thing. He's like, stop it. Because I'm really starting to give him a hard time. And he's like, stop. I'm like, what, dude? I'm getting tired of this, you know. And he's like, no, man, I filled out everything. I signed your name. If you want to go play football, he's like, go play football. He's like, you're gonna die in the military, dude. You're too crazy. He's like, so if you want to go, you can go. I was like, okay, I'll go. And they said, all right. And that's how. And I never corrected it. I graduated college. I never signed the paperwork. You know what I mean? So I actually have a fake degree. So this will all kind of make sense. Like, he wanted me to give you my story, but this is my story, man. This is from like day one. In 5th grade, I got taken out of 5th grade, and the guy said I'd never make it through junior high. You see? And so my whole life has been this way. The reason that I got a master's degree, I got a master's in business administration, was because Lumber said they'd pay for it. And me and my wife were eating cereal. I'm like, hey, Lumber said they'd buy my degree, you know? You can't get, she wrote all my term papers. Said, shut up. You know what I mean? I can get a degree. No, you can't. It's just a system, honey. It's a system you ain't getting in, right? And I'm like, I can do it. She's like, whatever. You know, we had this conversation. Well, then I never bought a book. I just went and I would sit next to the instructor, and he would go around the room and start arguing about the book that everybody read, and I would start arguing with people, and I don't know what I'm talking about, so they would get mad and tell me more, right? And when it got to me, I'd be like, and the guy'd be like, God, you know a lot about this. I'm like, don't I? Where are you sitting next week? Right here, bro. Start that way. If you would have started the other way, I would have been like, that way. That's honestly how I got my MBA. It's all a system. But nobody ever said that I was great or that I could go do it. It was always something funky. You know what I mean? And it was always like, it is like I skipped, I think, I can't remember, it's a long time ago, but 138 days in high school because I just got tired of going to the trailer. And then they called me in and they said that we can't get government funding if we flunk Title I students. I said, I don't care. And they're like, so if you show up and you babysit the handicapped kids for the next 2 weeks, we'll give you a seat. And I said, so, do that. You guys getting the feel? Like this is, I can go like, my home ec teacher, I didn't show up. My home ec teacher, this is a true story, has a crippled turkey. I didn't show up, ever. And she calls me and she likes me. Everybody liked me, right? And so she calls me and she says, Bill, she says, yeah, I got this turkey. And it's a crippled turkey. And I was going to eat it, but I don't feel good about killing it now because it's a pet. I'm like, so what? And she's like, if you kill my turkey and you bring it, it looks like a turkey, you know, with little caps on the top, and it's a turkey. And she's like, I'll pass you with a C+ or a B. Done. Like, you put a kid on a turkey, right? So I bring Pat Bjorgi with me, and Pat Bjorgi's sitting next to me, and he's an animal rights guy, right? And this is in high school, and I'm driving my pickup, and I got this turkey in the back, and it's got like a name on its head, right? You know what I mean? He's like, we can't kill the turkey. I'm like, the turkey's gone, dude. I didn't notice when I took it. And I said, okay, Pat, here's the deal. Because he was so upset about it, I'm like, we'll set the turkey free, and if it gets away, it stays alive. But if it doesn't get away, done. He's like, all right. So I get out of my pickup, and I throw the turkey out, and I lower the bed, and I'm sitting there with the shotgun and the turkey in a circle. I'm like, be free. And I'm like, shh. Yeah, turkey didn't make it. But it did look like a turkey, and I got a B. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, this is how I've gone through my life. So I get out into corporate America, you know, out of college, and it was like all of that was training for corporate America for me, right? In corporate America, I was a killer, you know? And I started in lumber, and I started stocking hangars, and then after stocking hangars, I moved into a semi. I drove a semi for 2.5 years. Was the best at it. They put me on a forklift. I drove a forklift for 2.5 years. Then I started mixing paint, you know, inside. Started stealing blueprints. I taught myself how to read blueprints, and I did it the old-fashioned way. Like, I forgot all the windows in the house. That's a big bid number lost. Like, the guy, send my windows. Oh, yeah, there are windows in the house, right? You bid the windows, right? No, but I will next time, you know? And that's how I taught myself. And then we supplied the Daniels DU Business Center. I think when I was 28, 29, I supplied Elitch's. It was the largest 5-pound trim. It was the largest 5-pound order in the history of the United States. And people calling from Pennsylvania, people calling from New York how to install it. I don't know how to install it. I just sold it, you know? The Daniels DU Business Center, I believe, and you can't quote me on some of this, a long time ago, but I believe they had been bidding that project for 25 years. So I was on a trike when they started bidding the project, and I took it in 2 weeks. You know, the last one was the Hirschfield Complex downtown. My company did all the wall, floor, truss engineering, and we provided every stick in the Hirschfield Press building. We couldn't tear it down because it had a historic front, so we built the Town Place Suites off the back. You know, it was the biggest project I ever did. And that's what I was doing. I was making about $130,000 a year right in there with perks, you know what I mean? They give me $18,000 every 3 months just to party on, you know. I had a black card. I never bought gas. That's the first thing I learned is put the black card in, you know what I mean, and get gas. And I joined Primerica and I quit that like you guys did. If I'm like, this guy thinks I'm crazy because I'm like, ding, ding. I'm like, is this not ridiculous? Ding, ding. Every day you do this. He's like, what are you talking about, dude? I'm selling my truck. Ding, ding, right? Because I didn't buy gas for 7 years, you know? But like I wore a mouthpiece at night so I wouldn't bite off my tongue, and I thought I'd close my jaw so fast I'd bite off my tongue, and I shattered all the teeth in my mouth. So they're like 4-leaf clovers. They just expand, and you glue them back together, and they expand, and you glue them back together, and you can't fix them anymore, okay? And so this is my life. I'm not telling anybody about this. I'm in corporate America making good money. Jerry, we just broke over the $100,000 mark. We just got the kids settled, you know, and I got into Primerica with Dave Harms, and Dave came to my house, okay? You're like, is he ever going to get to training? Dave came to my house in Primerica, you know what I'm saying? And one-on-one, and I'm sitting there. Dave doesn't know me from Adam, right? And if you saw me at that time, I didn't have as many chins, you know what I mean? I was working outside a lot of the time, tan, skinny, no worries, fly fishing a lot of the days. You know what I mean? So a lot of people go in and they would have not offered me the Primerica opportunity because I wasn't the right guy, right? He would never do that. You see? Living in a decent house, 12% debt to income ratio, stock options coming in, young. I may have been 30, just 30 at the time, right? But what nobody knew is that I had bought a book called Body for Life. And I wanted to get in better shape because I knew I was starting to lose it bad, you know what I mean? And I wasn't near the shape I was 10 years earlier, even though I was doing okay. And it says, take a picture of yourself just in your skivvies and you'll see who you really are, because, and this way before Primerica, right? And it says, take a picture of yourself because you see yourself at age 20, but now you're 30 and you have no idea what you become. So I'm like, okay, so I got way too much money, so I go down and I buy a $1,000 camera, which I did not need, and you know, I put it on Zoom and like hit it and went out and stood in front of it and it took a picture, and I went into almost like deep depression. I quit going to work, you know. Jerry thinks I'm going to work. I'm not really going to work. I'm pretty much staying home or going fishing, you know. And that's when Dave Harms came over. And so I'm sitting there and I look like everything's got together, right? But I got like this picture in my head and I'm not going to work. And we're still making big money and I'm doing okay. But I'm not doing okay, you know. And Dave says, come with me, takes that F&A and he says, come with me and I'll teach you how to make $100,000 a year. And I shoved it back at him and I said, I already make $100,000 a year, why would I come with you? And he said, you marry your wife to be with her or away from her? And I said, I married my wife to be with her. He says, how's that going for you? And I said, well, I pre-trip my truck at 4 in the morning and then I'm out on the job site probably about 6 in the morning, and she's a school teacher, so she goes to work at 6:30 in the morning. He says, what time you get home? I said, about 6:30 at night. So that's awesome. He says, you have kids to raise them or have another mother raise them? I said, we had the kids to raise them. He says, how's that going for you? I said, well, we drop them off at daycare at 6:30 in the morning. We pick them up at 6:30 at night. He says, that's awesome. He says, what time they go to bed? I said, about 8 o'clock. Dave says, so 6:30, 7:30. Hey, so you spend an hour and a half a day with your kids. You giving them the faith they need? You playing ball with them? Wrestling them? I said, no, man, we brush their teeth and put them to bed. I said, that's awesome. He says, so from what you're telling me, you married your wife so you'd never see her, you had kids so another mother would raise them, and you never planned on giving them your values anyway. He says, but you're making $100,000 a year, keep it. He says, what if you came with me, you made $50,000 a year and you owned it? You come and go as you please. You tape their ankles at the football games, you send them out on the field, they know your name, they know your beliefs. I said, I would quit tomorrow. Remember, taking a picture of myself, not going to work, guys like speaking my language, he didn't even know it. And I'm like, I'd quit tomorrow. And he says, what if you made $70,000 a year and your kids knew your name? I'm like, tomorrow. I quit. He's like, great, because you can make $500,000 a year here and keep your family. I was like, let's do that then. Let's do that. And that, I'm telling you, between John Addison, that's a 2-week period between Dave Harms and John Addison. Like, Jerry thought it was one of those things, and she didn't realize that, like, what was happening in my life and where I was headed. I haven't drank for 25 years, but at that time I hadn't drank for about 7 or 8. You know what I mean? And I'm not addicted to alcohol, I'm addicted to adrenaline. I'm the type of guy that gets drunk to go to the bar and fight, you know, and addicted to adrenaline. And like, I was thinking anything's better than this. You know what I mean? I'd rather be out roughing it up than just doing this, you know? And that was what was happening in my head and in my life. And Dave saved my life because he came and got me, you know? And so I started working in Primerica after that. We got pretty successful, but we didn't. I went back to regional leader at $90,000 a year because I went broke. So I was making 130, and last time I checked, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130. So 8 years into Primerica, I was still taking a $40,000 a year pay cut at $90,000 a year. And so I went back to regional leader, you know. And Dave Harms, another testimony to Dave Harms in the base shop you work out of. I called Dave at 4:30 in the morning, and I'm a big baby. Like, once again, I was crying, and I said, I can't do it, you know, I can't do it another day. I hadn't bought Christmas for my kids for 2 years. Both years I had a lady for a roommate in my base shop, and she bought so many toys for her kids that she had excess that they didn't open. So she would bring me the toys wrapped. So my kids would like get a Stretch Armstrong from 1986, dude. They'd be like, this is bad, Dad, where'd you find it? I'm like, I don't know. That is awesome. And we would wrap the batteries, you know what I mean, and all that stuff. And I'm like, I told Dave I can't do it. You know, I got to buy him Christmas this year. This is in December. And Dave says, well, why don't we meet at 4 in the morning? And I said, when, you know, when do you want to meet? He says, I don't know. I'm thinking like right now. I said, now? He's like, yeah, there's a diner in Monument. I'll be there by 5:30. You be there. We'll work this out, right? And so I meet Dave at the diner, and me and Dave, I'll be honest, had never got along before that very well. Like, we butted heads. We're both very aggressive. I'm not a Taurus, but it's Taurus type stuff. Like, we were very aggressive, you know. And I'd never done Dave any favors. And I didn't let him train at my shop. I'd never told him he's a great guy. We were not good buddies. You know what I mean? I tell people every time he ever put out his hand, I bid it. You see, and Dave goes down in that diner, and he says, okay, so what's the problem? I said, well, first off, we're behind on the mortgage, and I got to go back to lumber, and I got to get this thing under control, you know. And I said, and I cannot not buy the kids presents. I just can't, you know, I just can't. I've asked him for 2 or 3 years to accept that, and I can't. And Dave takes out his checkbook, and he writes out a $2,000 check, and he passes it to me. He says, did that cover your rent? I said, yeah. He said, that gets some presents under the table? I said, yeah. And he said, then let's work out the problem. I said, all right, let's do it. And so we took it, and what our deal was I took Brady Mann and Whitney Cooper, and I put them direct underneath Dave Harms, and his base shop was doing $30,000 a month, so he was maxing his bonuses at the time. So with Brady and Whitney underneath him, he was getting good bonuses. Do you see what I'm saying? Direct. And he cut me like $2,500 a month out of that. So I was always getting a $2,500 a month stipend off of the base shop I created. Do you see? Because I wasn't hitting the minimum numbers for my bases. And that saved my life. I mean, I started making money again, and I went under his tutelage, and he brought me back up, and that's called a do-over. Like, if I'm training you guys, I'm trying to teach about Primerica, right? That's a do-over. That's like, that doesn't happen in corporate America. You guys are trusting your corporate jobs. That don't happen. You don't bite somebody for 8, 9 years and tell them how stupid they are, and then you have a panic attack, and you're going to leave your corporate job, and then your boss making $600,000 a year takes you to a diner at 5:30 in the morning and completely saves your career. So now I always talk good about Dave. I do. It has completely changed. It was the first thing that I changed. I said, if I'm going to be successful, I need to change some things, and the first thing I need to do is eat some crow and admit this man knows a lot more about what he's doing than what I thought he knew what he was doing, and also admit that a lot of the things he offended me on were going to grow me better, right? And that I should show him a lot more respect. And I did. I've never changed that. Like, you would never know if me and Dave have an argument, because as far as I'm concerned, the guy's the man. You know what I mean? So then we went back to regional vice president. 6 months later, got the ring. You know what I mean? And then we're at 170,000 right now in our rolling 12. We should have the second diamond in the next 3 to 4 months, which will put us over 200,000 a year. And then we'll hit, I think, 225 by the end of this year to 300,000. And I've got about 7 to 8 regional vice presidents to promote. So next year I'm slated to, I think, to do 400,000 to 700,000 a year next year. We'll have the fastest, I think, transfer of wealth in the history of Primerica, because we aren't at SVP right now. So we don't override Whitney second gen. None of Whit, we override her on bonuses and stuff. So I made 8,000 this month from Old Whit. That's awesome. But as for like acknowledgement, none for promotion. None. No acknowledgement for, like, you guys to go to district, you need to do 3x3. Okay? I can't. It's like a district promotion at RVP. I have to have 3 direct regional vice presidents that I trained doing 25,000 underneath me, or I get no credit for my second gen down, right? So we will go to SVP, but then 6 months later I'll be an NSD, because then her numbers kick in, right? And I think we did 140,000 in our hierarchy through seconds. Do you get that? Yeah. NSDs do 140,000 through seconds. It's just this NSD don't get no credit for it yet, right? So it's going to be quick. It's going to be a boom boom. Everybody's going to say it's overnight success. It's going to be 15-year overnight success, right? We've been building and building and building, and that is my career. And if I can tell you anything, just in any type of training, because when Tom asked me to train on this, I'm like, it's really not technical. I can teach you how to recruit and stuff, but if we're going to do it this way, motivational, then I'm just trying to tell you that you're with the right company, and you should go do something big in it. And if it gets hard, you should make it anyway. You know what I mean? And when I tell you to go to convention, you should go to convention. And it should become not a part of your life, it should become your life. You should care more about this. I tell the people in my base shop that don't show up to my op meetings, you didn't show up Thursday night. Yeah, I know. So you're going to give me a no-call, no-show at Walmart tomorrow, right? What are you talking about? You're not going to your job tomorrow, right? Because you skipped mine. So you're going to skip them. Oh, no, I'm going there. Well, that's awesome. What did they pay you again? $1,500 a month? Yeah. I just checked my numbers. I'm at $18,900 right now. So I'm offering you a position that can pay you $18,900 a month to $20,000 a month, and you don't show up to my Thursday nights, and you're going to hit Walmart on time. Make sure you get your shirt on before you clock in, because they'll fire you. They want your shirt on before you clock in. Right? So that'll get me kind of into my next topic, which is basically I wanted to go over my story and kind of how I got in here, and then what motivated me really in Primerica was not only was it I was motivated by my past. I wanted to be something big. I wanted to be something big in football. It never happened. I wanted to be somebody in high school. I spent my life in trailers. I always knew I wanted to do something, and I saw the opportunity here. But as I grew up, I watched what happened to my dad, and this is what Tom was talking about. I'm not good at reading, but I'm highly analytical, in other ways. And I watched my father. My father was city manager for 13 years for Montrose. He was the chief of the fire department, and he was the chief of the police department, right? And what he did is he got not elected. It's an elected position, so in his 13th year of being a city manager, he didn't get elected back, right? So my dad got in. So I believe the first thing he got into was real estate, and he tried to build a real estate office. Now, my dad was the president of KU, student president of Kansas University, and I don't know if you guys have ever seen a thing. It's got a little mouse, and it's flipping off an eagle that's called the Last Act of Defiance. My dad did that. The eagle represents Montrose, Colorado, and the mouse represents Montrose, Colorado, and the eagle represents the federal government, because they were trying to take dams away from the western slope, and Dad wouldn't let them take them to bigger cities. So he would meet with the president, he would meet with the governors, and he would get so they have like flags and monuments in Montrose in my father's name for what he did as a city manager. He gets into real estate, totally failed. Then he built a theme park in Spain, and the theme park was worth $71 million, I believe. But he built it under the small government. There's two governments in Spain. And when he got the plans done, the smaller government was pushed by the bigger government to exile my father from Spain. So he got exiled, or I don't know what you'd call it, but thrown out of Spain. And then they built the project without him, using his blueprints. And it's called Sherry World, so they built it over in Spain. I don't know what they call it now, but the theme park is not Dad's. He was featured in Inc. magazine. So I can remember, like, when he came, like the stuff scars, like we're sitting in a Denny's, and he can't, talk. He can't, process. I'm a kid, and he's like, I still got to catch my plane. Mom's like, there's no plane. You're home, and we're sitting as kids around this dinner table. But if you could imagine losing $71 million of other people's money, it's hard to come home, right? So he comes home and he puts that back together. And then he went out and he built the largest HMO, I think, in Mexico's history. Because Mexico didn't have a program that would help the doctors. There's no malpractice programs in Mexico. So you cut off the wrong finger in Mexico as a doctor, you're done, right? Done. Like financially, we worry about malpractice suits here, but without any malpractice insurance, you're done. So he builds this HMO so that they can have insurance, and so that the poor can have health care, right? He gets it done, Cigna Healthcare. I don't know all the details because I'm his kid. He didn't sit down and say, Bill, this is what we're doing, right? But from what I understand, Cigna Healthcare came in and said, we'll pay you pennies on the dollar, but when it gets big, we'll pay you the full amount for the company. So Cigna took the deal over, and then they allowed it to go bankrupt on my father. And then when he could no longer afford his life, He left Mexico and never went back, and then Cigna Healthcare used his connections and built it back without him, with their money, right? So now, that's twice. Now he's like 60, right? And he's never liked Primerica, but I think he doesn't like Primerica because when he's almost 80 now, he looks at me and he knows I got my shot, right? And he doesn't know how much I studied Primerica before I got into it, you see? And he's like, boy, don't waste your shot. Don't waste your shot. I can remember my father, he would, you know what a Mont Blanc pin is? A Mont Blanc pin that costs about $150, $200. They got a little cap on it, that white, that represents a mountain, you know? My dad would take a Mont Blanc pin and then he'd go meet with you, Tom, and you'd be in the restaurant and he would write with that Mont Blanc pin until you said, God, it's a nice pin, Jim. And Jim was like, you like this? Yeah. And he'd say, here, write with it. And you'd take it, and it'd always be a fountain tip, you know what I mean? And you take that fountain tip pin and you'd write with it. And he'd say, you know, Tom, it looks better in your hand than it does mine. Why don't you keep that? And you'd be like, I can't keep this pin. It's a $200 pin, right? And Jim would be like, it's my favorite pin, but you know what? You mean a lot to me. You just keep that, and we'll go do something else. And we'd go into our car, and my dad would hit the glove box, and it would come down, and he would pull out another Mont Blanc pin and put it in his pocket and go. Badass. Like, badass, right? But when he was giving it to Tom, it's like the most important pin he's ever had, you know? My father gave me that pin. You know what I mean? Here you go. But he would walk out, hit the thing, grab another pin, throw it in, we'd go to the next meeting, you know, and I'm just a kid doing this stuff. And I just watched corporate America systematically destroy my father. And I was like, when I got into Primerica and I studied it, we're the largest financial institution in North America. Do you guys understand how powerful our lawyers are? They're nasty, right? So if you're the Securities and Exchange Commission and you're going to come audit me, you best have a good reason. And as long as I can prove to Glenn Williams that I'm not cheating people, whose side are the lawyers on? My side. So if Cigna Healthcare wanted to come down and mess with my business, they best know what they're doing, right? Because who do I have behind me? Glenn Williams and his dogs. You see what I'm saying? So I'm protected by this shield of compliance, safety, and I don't have to worry about that. Do you see? Now, when I study Primerica, why would they hire a truck driver, right? It's not that they have problems with Harvard educations, but what they do is they look at me, and what Primerica says is, hey man, that kid took it from $8 an hour to $130,000 a year in about 8 years. You know, what if we gave him a shot, and then we just put him next to the Harvard guy and asked him, who wants it more, you or the Harvard guy? And I used to eat him like popcorn. Right? Where's your degree again? Let's go to work. Right? Let's go to work. Eat him up. Doesn't matter where you came from to me. And Primerica knew that about me. I come from the wrong side of the tracks. You come from the right. We'll see who wants it more and who ends up in the end. You see? That makes me very valuable to Primerica. There's been 4,100 regional vice presidents in the history of Primerica, 4,100 in 37 years. Only 1,000 of those regional vice presidents have ever produced another regional vice president. My hierarchy produced 13 in the last 2 years. That valuable? Primerica wants to get distribution going. Whitney's number 4 in the contest. Not 40, not 400. Number 4. She'll be the number 1 agent in Primerica here soon. I'm not claiming that I trained her to do that, but she was trained by somebody. Who? And who'd Brady live with for 9 months? Just saying. Money, right? Money in the bank for Primerica. So when I study Primerica, I have a lot of value to them. I may not be on the cover of magazines with Primerica, but they look at my numbers. They know I'm doing 225. They know I override Whitney Cooper. They know I override Brady Mann. They know this. And so that gives me a certain amount of safety that they don't want to get rid of me, right or wrong.
Right.
Then the last area, and I don't want to spend all my time because I'm trying to get you out on time, but my last area is that I studied was, am I going to have compliance issues? Can they take it away? You know what I mean? Well, can I produce enough value that they'll keep me, right? Because that's important. And then I wanted to know I could own it.